Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Committee meeting at 4:02. We have a quorum. Lorene, can you do roll call, please?
Olivia Perry, Brian Schimming, Brian McKee is excused absence, Godwin, Jenny Sanders,
Here.
Marshall Mertens, Mallory Gorman,
Here.
Michelle Bozeman,
Here.
and Gabriella Gerhardt.
Here.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on to the third agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting. That would be April 13th. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Second?
Second.
Thank you. I will make a motion to amend those minutes if I could. There needs to be a motion to add the adjournment time, which was not originally put in those minutes. So I'll move to add that time. Could I have a second, please?
Second.
And Lorene, you'll insert the appropriate time when you know it. Yes. Thank you. Perfect. Moving on to agenda item number 4, public appearances for non-agenda items. I do not see anybody in chambers. Oh, I'm sorry.
Valerie, we need to adopt the minutes as amended.
Okay. Can I make a motion to adopt the minutes for the April 13th, 2025 Housing Advisory Committee meeting as amended?
And I'll second that. Do we need a second?
Yes. Gabriella, you look perplexed. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
No, that's good.
Okay, good. No, I'm just looking at your face. I was going, oh, I've done that
I thought
wrong.
we were moving to, I thought we were moving to amend it, so we need to vote on the main motion.
No.
So that we can adopt the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we all have to vote.
Well, I'll have to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Public appearances, we have no one in chambers and no one online. Agenda item number 5 is resolutions and ordinances, which we have none. Item number 6, we have a new member to our committee. We have Michelle Bozeman. Welcome, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Welcome to our committee. I'm wondering if you could just take a few minutes to tell us about yourself and what brought you to this committee.
Well, what brought me to this committee is that I am a resident of Fitchburg. Been here many years, always wanted to get my feet in the door to do more public work, because that's what I do. I volunteer everywhere, every organization, but my love is really for my community between economic development. I also do housing, so there's a lot of other different things that I wear a variety of hats on. However, now with everything's going in my life, I'm finally at a point that I feel like I am ready for, for public service, which I've always been involved with it, but this is just now from a different side. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to see the new and improvement things that's going on in Fitchburg. And I'm hoping that my voice, I hope it not only just carries, but I just hope that adding me on, hopefully it could be, I want to be involved with all the change. I guess that's the better way of putting it.
Wonderful.
But thank you.
And you work for Dane County, is that correct? I was looking at a
I
little bit of
do.
bio.
I am the Economic Development Specialist for Dane County. Hi, Olivia.
Nice to finally see a face to an email. I've seen your email and we've exchanged emails for many years, but I've never met you in person or virtually or in person. It's nice to meet you.
Yes, so I'm excited. I already work with Godwin. I had a relationship with Brian Shimming when my private sector first started. So he was my administrator when I first got into state government. So he knows the young Michelle. So again, I'm just grateful to be around a lot of individuals like-minded whose goals and words is pretty much the same. So us working together, I see nothing but good things. So thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're very lucky to have you. Thank you very much, Michelle.
Yes, thank you.
We'll move on to some of the substantive material for today. We are going to be talking about the housing plan, and Dana Sarver is here from Redevelopment Resources. Hi, Dana, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to do this tonight. So as Mallory introduced me, I am Dana Sarver. I am affectionately referred to as the Chief Data Geek at Redevelopment Resources. Kristen Fish-Peterson is our principal and CEO, and she's going to be the project manager for this project. However, she is on a Mediterranean cruise with the women in her family. So well-deserved, needed, and I am super excited to see all the pictures when she gets back. Dean Prestigard is also on our team. He will be doing like the transportation impact or transit-oriented development type housing identification and all of the things that go into how do we get people from where they live to where they work and all of that. Also a data geek. And then, so I thought I would just go over an overview of the project itself. We're in the document review phase right now and getting started with stakeholder engagement. We just had our kickoff meeting with the steering committee last Friday and getting contact information for interviews and focus groups in the development of a survey, an online and hard copy survey available in English and Spanish, may be available in Hmong if we can find an interpreter. And then getting some calendar dates set for community engagement activities like at the farmers market, concerts in the park, that sort of thing, and then neighborhood meetings. I've already started the process on gathering a secondary data for demographics in the geographic area and an economic profile, and that'll help us with understanding the existing conditions within Fitchburg, and then help us forecast trends and like based on trends what the projections will be. And then probably around September, you'll start to see more of a hard copy draft start to come together. We would like to come to this committee, particularly in August, when we have more of those pieces pulled together from the secondary data, the stakeholder engagement activities, and to get your feedback as well. And then all of that should be wrapped up by the end of October, and then we'll go to the Community Economic Development Authority in November, and then finally the City Council in December. At the kickoff meeting with the steering committee, we talked about the overarching goals and objectives of the project. We talked about the existing plans and documents that are available beyond what's available on the website. And then we got a better understanding of the history and challenges within the city, since the township doesn't exist anymore. There's some urban service area issues that was a really good takeaway from that meeting. And then identifying opportunities for where new housing stock could go, and what resources are available. And then, just some more administrative tasks internally. So next steps is for me to get Lorene a copy of the survey in English to start with, and then getting it translated into Spanish. I'm fortunate that my daughter, who is home this weekend from the Dominican Republic, she's a Peace Corps volunteer there, and she's interpreted surveys for us in the past, so she'll be an asset to this project as well. And then getting that to go live. We'll probably have that survey available in hard copy form at the library, City Hall, and Senior Center. And then having that open for about 4 weeks. Have any questions?
Go ahead, Gabriella.
Hi, Dana. I'm the Alder representative on the committee, so I sit on the council. 2 questions. I'm curious who's on the steering committee. And then second, is there any plans to interview any of the elected officials about their perspectives on housing?
Sure. The mic cut out at the beginning of your question. Could you repeat it?
Yes. Who is on the steering committee?
I'll help out.
I will.
Or do you have the names,
Thanks,
Dana?
Lorene.
Yeah, I'll help out. So Jenny Sanders, because she is a representative of housing of this committee. And then we also have Mark Hamilton from CETA. And then we have Brad from planning. And then we also have Janice Hughes, that's kind of representing the senior population. And then obviously Mike and myself.
And then to answer the second part of your question, when we have those neighborhood meetings, we would like to have them within each ward with that particular alderperson in place.
Okay, but no plans to talk to the elected officials specifically about housing?
Well, it would be kind of like that listening session for the residents, but also we could do it to collectively. It's just like the quorum issue. So that's why we were thinking we would have the conversation with you at those neighborhood meetings.
Are you making a request,
just
Gabriella?
No, I mean, I trust the process that you put together. I just sometimes it's nice to, we're the ones that will end up voting on it. So sometimes it's good to hear where we're coming from and get that context in the lead up before you get to the point where we're at a vote and then there's a lot of surprise about where the elected officials' heads are at. I've seen that happen quite a lot with different plans where the elected officials aren't looped in and then we get to the point of a vote and there's a lot of surprise about where people, where their heads are at.
Correct. So yes, you will be provided regular updates about where we're at with the process, and we would prefer no surprises when it comes to council as well. So we can definitely work that in.
Olivia?
Oh, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I have audio issues on my laptop. Anyway, nice to see you. It's been many years working on this project. One of the questions I had was, are you doing individual stakeholders with builders and developers about challenges or opportunities that they're potentially dealing with?
Yeah, I can pull up a quick list of who we've kind of identified as key stakeholders. As far as groups, including like the Urban League, the Latino Chamber of Commerce, staff and elected officials. Oh, I went too far. The school district, Madison Area Builders Association, the Realtors Association of South Central Wisconsin, Smart Growth Greater Madison, Dane County, Housing Authority and Human Services, the Fitchburg Police Department, Housing Service Providers, and the Housing Advisory Task Force.
That's a great list. I would just recommend including some multifamily developers. It's really good to get everybody's perspective, whether they're market rate or probably more, affordable housing developers. Certainly Gorman could be one, but I have a whole list if you're interested. And if that's, if you're able to put that in your scope, it's just been very helpful. And I think the Madison Area Builders is great. I also think that getting a larger home builder like Viridian, or maybe just Viridian or one of the other ones, they have a little bit different perspective than MABA, although MABA represents them. My experience with the Reno Housing Strategy was just having...
And Tim O'Brien, since they just did Terravesa, we could get in contact with them as well.
Yeah, and another suggestion I would have is, it's really important that developers feel safe in communicating, as you know, so you might want to just offer the interviews as anonymous, so no one's getting targeted if they have something, less than exciting to say about working with Fitchburg.
Olivia, I think that was great feedback. And I think for you or anyone else that has some extra people that you would want Dana to interview, if you can send me that list and I can forward that on to her. Thank you.
Gabriella?
Yeah, just one more to add on, and I can email you as well, Lorraine, but the developers that are in our smart code areas of town would be an interesting thing, just given the fact that that's kind of a unique subset of our zoning and how they're working within that context. That could also be an interesting developer to interview.
Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would just comment, we're really excited to get this project launched. The original plan, our first housing plan, was done in 2019, and of course, the market is completely different. And so we're in need of a much needed update and a refresh of the plan. And I think we've got a great team with redevelopment resources. So we know Dana, we know Kristen, and we know Dean. So we've got a great team of people to work with, and they've worked on different plans throughout the state. So I think they bring a balance of perspectives to meet the needs of Fitchburg. So we're really excited to hit the ground running. And Gabriella, we definitely want the Fitchburg elected officials to fully engage. We talked about that with the steering committee at the focus groups that we will be having kind of within the districts, but we thought that was a good opportunity for our elected officials also to have some constituent engagement at the same time. But we definitely want all of you to participate through that process to get your input and feedback.
Yeah, go ahead, Gabriella.
Yeah, just to add one thing, and I should have said this to begin with, and I think we mentioned this when we passed this at council and put the funding behind it, but the council's really interested in housing and taking action on housing, especially in the context of having $10 million in our affordable housing fund. So this council is ready to
11th, is that correct?
Dana, that's the next meeting.
Yeah, sorry, that is the next
August
meeting.
11th.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward
Yeah.
to, yeah, we look forward to that very much. Well, thank you for taking the time to come before the committee and give us the information. Wonderful. Okay. Moving on to our next agenda item, we have a project update. We have Lane Manning here from Dream Lane Real Estate. Thanks very much for coming, Lane.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm fighting a little pneumonia, so I'll probably be coughing a little bit, but I feel better. I sound way worse than I actually feel, so I feel much better. But yeah, so thank you. I'm sitting in for Sean O'Brien today. My partners, Dream Lane Real Estate and North Point Development, they're working on that project. Just a little bit of background. I was on the Planning Commission here in 2016 through 2019. So this is kind of a fun project because this is the first one I finally get to do something in Fitchburg with my business name on it. It's kind of a little source of pride. So I'll give you a brief update. I got a couple of bullet points I'll talk about. I'll open up for questions. North Point Development and Dreamland Real Estate are proposing to construct Uptown Hills Townhomes, a newly constructed 24-unit workforce family rental development located on the far east side of the city of Fitchburg. The development will consist of, excuse me, the development will consist of the new construction of a 6 two-story townhome-style buildings consisting of 24 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath units, roughly 1,450 square foot each, totaling 24 rental units targeting residents of all ages. We will set aside all the units for residents earning 30, 50, and 80% or less of Dane County's median income, or AMI, using the WIDA tax credit program. The subject site is improved with a single-family home that will be raised as part of this redevelopment plan. The site is located near the northeast corner of the intersection of Lacey and Haight Farm Roads, the Lacey and Haight Farm Road roundabouts. Lacey Road is a moderately traveled thoroughfare in the city of Fitchburg. It sits closely existing to other multifamily projects that have been there from the Avante side, and then the new side, I can't remember the name of that developer over there, but all the new projects that are going up between Limerick and Hartung. It's looking really great over there. It's within close proximity to many shopping centers and Fitchburg and the city of Madison. The site is located 5.1 miles south of downtown Madison and offers all the amenities of a larger city. The project will also receive Energy Star multifamily new construction and EPA Indoor Air Plus certifications. And additionally, with the Limerick being part of our portfolio, this is basically an extension of our portfolio, so we'll be able to share operating efficiencies and synergies and resources with that other project right up the street. One thing I want to point out here is we're building 3-bedroom units. I think the Limerick was completed in 2021, 2022, and that's got 16 3-bedroom units. This one's going to have 24, so our group is, in 4 years, put 40 affordable 3-bedroom units in the city of Fitchburg, which we're very proud of, because you just don't see people in the LIHTC or affordable housing space building 3-bedroom units. Housing has needs. Every part of the state, every city, and every genre of housing, but 3 bedrooms are one of those ones that are kind of, families are one of those ones that are kind of not forgotten about. It's just hard to do, just to get them to pencil out. So we're proud that we've been able to bring 4 to the city. And it sounds like a drop in the bucket, but in actuality, it's really big. We got that many done in that amount of time. Excuse me. So just to give you a little idea of the rents, we did a little research. We are estimating that the rents across the street for their 3-bedroom market rate units are going to be between $2,700 and $2,900 per unit. To give you guys a little reference and context, the affordable ones at 30, 50, and 80% 3-bedroom units on our side should come in at about $900 to $2,000 per unit. So roughly, and that's again, it's 30, 50, and 80% of them. So roughly 60% of our 24 units are going to be offered at a $1,200 a month discount over what market will pay. I put that in there just so you kind of get the stat of what we're trying to do, what the affordable housing piece does, so you kind of know the value of the money that we're asking for and how far it's going to go. So this project's roughly about $10 million to get it done, about $9.8 million. Of that, you can get about 65% from WIDA, through the 4% tax credit program. It's a 24 award. But we got to go find the other $3.5 million, right? So we got $1 million from the county, and we got $2 million from AHP, Federal Home Loan Bank's Affordable Housing Program, which brings us to asking Fitchburg for $330,000. And it doesn't seem like a lot over a $10 million project, but in some cases, that's the straw that breaks the camel's back or gets you over the top to get this project actually built. When I started this, so a quick little background, the Limerick, I was on the planning commission when the Limerick came through. That's when I met Sean O'Brien. He explained LIHTC to me. I'd never even heard that acronym back then. And I thought, yeah, I should do this. I could just build some housing and name it after my kids and stuff. And since then, it's kind of funny because since then, Russia started a war in Ukraine. Interest rates have skyrocketed. Construction costs have skyrocketed. Needless to say, just like the housing study that you mentioned earlier in 2019, everything has changed and you're going to have to rethink it. The Limerick, you couldn't even build right now if you tried. It wouldn't even be buildable because the interest rates are just too high. You couldn't do it for what we did it for, right? What they did it for. So what I've learned in this process, and you're always learning, is that you just do what you can, where you can, when you can. And so we've changed numbers a little bit. That's why 24 units kind of makes sense. There's another one working on in Oregon. That's 24 units because that's easy. You can make those pencil out pretty easily. In our area, they score. And I don't want to get too deep in how we score and all that stuff, but we know that you have this kind of housing money that we can get, and that makes this project very scoreable and easy to get over the top. One of the things I got to give a little credit to is Mike, now that I've worked here long enough in our whole department, is when I was on the planning commission, I never understood why we extended TIFs here and there or kept it open for a little bit longer and snuck a little money into a little fund. And 9 years later, you guys have a $10 million housing fund that most municipalities the same size don't. They're searching for this thing to offer developers to help put housing in their community. Because at this stage of the game, the way our financial environment works, we don't get affordable housing for seniors, families, or anything without substantial assistance from the municipality. So I'm going to give those guys a little credit and glaze them a little bit because that's, I didn't see it back then, but I definitely see it now, right? So, and then the last quick thing I wanted Mike to give me a little help on, one of the benefits, excuse me, we did it as a TIF loan versus a pay-go TIF. Would you help me with that a little bit just so I can articulate it?
Yep, we're going to actually tap into that TID for Housing Fund that Lane referenced, the $10 million. And this is kind of a precursor to our next agenda item. We're going to be talking about housing programs and the buckets and the funds. And even though this project is located geographically in TID number 14, and we could have done a pay-as-you-go developer bond model, because it's a smaller amount, the 330, we decided to do an upfront deferred loan, which is a win-win for both the city and the developer because during the term of the loan, the project pays 2% interest annually, and then it's payable on the back end at the 17-year period. Yep. And it allows us to also utilize some of our TID for housing dollars and get that money out the door. But then it comes back to us. So then it goes back into our housing fund in 15 to 17 years when it's payable. So we're kind of trying to expand the pie here so it's not just one-time money that's out the door and doesn't come back to us.
Yeah, and I got to give Julia and the entire staff, Fitchburg, Alderman, all of them, just credit for being that collaborative and working with developers because it's not that easy with every municipality. It's tough. It's a tough job to do, tough job to put housing there. So I really appreciate Fitchburg's assistance for creative solutions like that, right?
We wanted to have Lane come, and part of the reason for it is we've got the deferred loan referred out from the council. It's going out tomorrow in the council packet, and then Finance and Council will take it up on Tuesday the 24th. And what we're doing in the midst of that right now is we needed to add some additional legal capacity because our city attorney is at full capacity with the workload that she's got. So the city has now contracted with Axley to provide some additional legal services kind of on retainer for us. So as we continue to develop and launch housing programs that we'll talk about with our the memo that's coming up next. They're working on those legal documents that are needed for these particular programs. So this will be the first one. You're our pilot program, Lane, with our upfront deferred loan here for it. So the attorneys are working on those documents. We'll get those finalized, and then that'll all go to council on the 24th, Finance and Council.
I think our goal with that is to try to have a project in the ground, shoveling the ground by the end of summer, and hopefully by this time next year, we'll be renting, leasing it up. So.
We really appreciate the product that they're bringing in our 2019 plan. That was one of the key recommendations, were the need for townhome units, and especially 3 bedrooms for families and affordable workforce townhome units. So we appreciate the supply that they've brought, not only with the Limerick, but now with this next project with Uptown Hills.
You know, we tried a lot. Like, we've talked for a couple of years until we finally find a site that can score and make. There's so many little variables that you have to make work. So, thoroughly enjoy working with Mike. Thanks. That's all I had for my bullet points. I'll open up for any questions if you guys might have.
So I was feverishly writing while you were talking. So it remind me again. Okay, there's 24 units. So it's you said two-story buildings. Are they townhome?
Yep.
Style?
So 6 two-story buildings. 6
two-story buildings. Okay, got it. And they're all 3 bedroom, 2 bath.
Correct.
And will they have 2-car garages?
We're kind of arguing over that right now. We're trying to get that through smart code. The plan is that they'll have 2-car garages.
Okay.
We're limited on the space, so remember fire. We're working with fire department trying to get the entrances in, and but the plan is to give them at least 1 car. I didn't bring a diagram. I apologize, but they all get at least 1 car, hopefully 2.
And then what other kinds of amenities on site? I'm assuming not like there's not going to be a swimming pool and a clubhouse and all these sort of luxury things,
So
right?
not in this one. The Limerick. That's actually a great question. One of the questions I had for Sean, I hadn't asked him yet, is if they are allowed to use the amenities within the Limerick. I don't know if that's a yes or no, but because we'll have some security concerns in there and access concerns, but right now it's just the townhome setup. There isn't a lot of land there, to be frank. It's kind of tight with a wetland right behind it, the road, a new sewer lateral coming down. So, so no specific amenities besides the 3-bedroom usage, but there'll be some green space that we can maybe put a playground in, something like that.
And then in terms of transportation, so I'm assuming bus line, there's bike, will there be some sort of connection to bike paths
So your
and things
normal
like
connections
that?
to Fitchburg, bus line right in front of the Limerick area, obviously the bike path access, but we anticipate most of these will be families with cars, at least 1 or 2 cars.
Okay,
They'll
and school,
transfer
and
themselves.
like school busing
Yep, schools, buses are right there.
right there, okay.
One other amenity that you have is the B-cycle station.
What, the Limerick?
Correct. Yeah.
Sure. I guess we can, count that as members. So one of the things I did, we like to do is we added B-cycle. So we were one of the early adopters of Fitchburg's adoption of B-cycle. We have spots there. We've been trying to get the seniors to use those. So the Limerick is set up where 16 family units, 49 senior units, and we're trying to get the senior. It's a direct shot from the Limerick to the senior center on an e-bike. We didn't have the great numbers last year. Our numbers are a little bit better this year, but the tenants of this building will have access to those as well. And it's roughly, I think, 500 feet away from where this building will be, up just past the roundabout to get to those stations.
And then
So,
can you talk a little bit about kind of the level of finishes and kind of what the interior will look like in
Sure.
those units?
Have you ever seen any of our, I didn't bring it
And I've seen the Limerick, so is it going to be similar to
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yes.
Kind of carbon copy.
We've
of
had to
that.
make a couple changes, like, we had to go down in lights a little bit. Light bulbs went to nothing, no LEDs anymore. It's all screw-based. I can't think of that number for that bulb. Just efficiency changes, but yeah, solid surface, quartz, countertops, your normal cabinetry with, Emily likes to do sand dust colors, and she'll make it look pretty. She always does. But your normal poles, try to make it trendy paint, white trim, Kohler fixtures, that kind of stuff.
Storage units in the buildings
There'll
at
be
all?
storage inside them, like a storage setup in there.
In each individual unit,
yeah.
but not a separate storage? Okay.
Correct.
Olivia, did you have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, Lane, nice to meet you.
How you doing?
Olivia Perry, Dane County. It's a great project. Yeah, very exciting project for Fitchburg. I'm wondering about the 1 versus 2 car garage, only because I know you're trying to, make ends meet, and I know Fitchburg has a sustainability program, and I'm not sure how that plays into this, but given the amount of transportation access that with a bus and a bike lane and a bike path and, so close to everything, it seems like it would be a really great model if you could make it work with 1-car garages.
Oh, you're a proponent of 1-car garages?
Or no car garages.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, the plan is 2, and I'm going to be very brief. I'm not following this because I know we're having some smart code issues. We're trying to get the fire department to agree to access for their stuff and then fit within smart codes rules as well. So I went on to another project while Sean's kind of working on that. Maybe Mike can talk in detail, but the plan is 2. We'd like to offer 2 just because that's kind of what smart code's requiring. But again, fire department is going to trump all that. So does that make sense? And I'll kind of stop at that because I didn't research that before I came. I do apologize.
Well, and I also feel like when you do a townhome, just architecturally, you've got the base as your garage, and you go up from there. So sometimes it does make, just from a spatial standpoint, a 2-car garage just happens to fit better in a footprint of a, right? I mean,
we agree.
It may end up being more efficient architecturally, cost even to do a 2-car versus a 1, right? So it wouldn't cost any more, I guess, is my question.
No, we've got it built in there. It's just the big thing is the fire department and smart code, getting them all to agree and how that works. And we're working on it. We're collaborating, I should say.
And city staff has been providing some flexibility on the site parameters, both through public works and planning, as far as even allowing a 3rd drive access on the east side to allow with the topography to help things line up there. So I think it's all coming together.
I stay out of that. Just let it naturally happen. Exactly. Yep. Pun intended, right? Pun intended.
Yes, Gabriella.
Just wanted to clarify something, and this is for staff. Smart code doesn't require a 2-car garage. Is that, or does it require it for certain types of properties? Because we've done a ton of townhouses in Terra Vesa that have 1-car garages. So
yeah, we just require kind of a garage or underground parking per unit, at least. It's not per bedroom, but per unit. It can be a
1-car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think we don't necessarily want to shortchange, especially if we're talking a 3-bedroom townhome.
Right.
Unit here, as far as the parking that a family or the occupants may need.
Someone with a 2-car garage, I love that, and I think that's nice. But I think it is a discussion we've had before about creating affordability in homes, that sometimes these finishes are what drive up the cost of the home. A 1-car versus, or a 1-car garage versus a 2-car garage in certain types of home layouts can obviously save money. Finishes like quartz countertops, that are natural stone, is that driving up the price? Those are types of things that certainly is in my head. I'm not a developer, so I can't speak to that, but it's just things that I think about when I'm hearing about these projects. That being said, this seems like a beautiful project. I think having 3 bedrooms in a townhouse format is an amazing asset for families that are in that income range. So it's great to have this in the city, and I'm happy that this is moving forward, and proud that we can utilize our Affordable Housing Fund money in this way.
Thanks.
So I just had a couple of questions. So the unit configuration that you've got for the 24, 5 units at 30% CMI?
Ooh, I did not look up the configuration. It's 30, 30, 15, 80.
Right, so 10 units at 50 and 9 at 80. Does that sound right? And
yes.
Is it similar to the Main Street Townhome project in Oregon as far as unit configuration as well?
Very similar.
Very similar. So
You're familiar with that project?
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then are any of these units then targeted to those experiencing homelessness That was in an article quite a while ago, so I don't know if that was still the case.
Yeah, WIDA requires you to use the 30% units for those. Until there's a whole process. You can't rent those out until you know that there are people experiencing homelessness. There isn't anyone in the county in that position. And so you have to hold that unit for a certain amount of days until we're confirmed with that, and then you can rent that to the next available 30% user. So veterans, that also goes the same thing for veterans. We set aside those 30% units for veterans.
Okay. And just so I understand, so the term of the loan is 15 years or on sale or re-syndication? That money is then paid back, so it's 15, not 17? Because I think you said 17, but I think the WIDA loan's 17.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one's 15. And this is at a 2% rate, right? And the WIDA loan is at, I think, 3%. Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Well, thanks, Lane. I appreciate all the information.
Thank you for doing this.
No worries. Thanks, Lorraine. If you have any other questions, want me to
Thanks, Lane.
Appreciate your coming. Thanks so much.
No worries.
Thanks.
Okay, on to agenda item number 9 is the discussion of our Affordable Housing Fund.
And city staff has been working with Mayor Julia on with our $10 million TIF for housing fund that we've capitalized with multiple successful TID districts being kept open an extra year, and then with some interest dollars that we've accrued over time since we've closed the districts. We have approximately $10 million. So we've been having conversations with the mayor about identifying kind of those program categories and then designating some dollar amount buckets to those program categories. So I'm just going to go through kind of the list real quick as far as where we are right now with Mayor Julia as far as ideas. And then what would happen is we want to hear input and feedback from the Housing Advisory Committee. We're also going to be chatting with the council about it, and then also with CETA at their meeting in June. And then the goal is to then align whatever kind of consensus we reach on those program categories and the funding amounts with our 2026 budget submittal to reflect kind of the consensus that we have with the various groups. So the first program that's listed is the rental rehabilitation, the Efficiency Navigator program. Joyce will be giving us an update on the launch of that program. And we've upped that to about $1 million just because we've already increased it to $500,000 based on the interest that we got from the first round. And with the housing stock that we have here in Fitchburg, we think an additional $500,000 will be of interest and utilized if we go out for another round of gauging interest with more property owners in our community, especially with the successful launch that we've had. And Joyce has some good information to update us on that. So we're proposing to up that one to $1 million. That would go towards that program. The second bucket that we're identifying, and good segue with having Lane here today, is to utilize some of the TID for housing dollars to fill the gap, just like we're doing here with $330,000. And that would be part of the $1.5 million here. The other potential bonus in this one is working with Dane County. Lorene and Joyce worked with them, that there could be another $600,000 that would be available. That could be available for infrastructure for it. I'm sorry, I've got that in the wrong line item. That needs to be down under the next one. Sorry, I'll move that around. So $1.5 million with the LIHTC credits with $330,000 for Uptown Hills. The resources for land banking, this is where the infrastructure should fall under here. So we've identified $2 million for either land banking that we would acquire as the city or that we would provide and make available as matching funds for potential partners that could be out there. For this could be somebody like Habitat for Humanity. It could be for the Community Land Trust group or other potential partners. And then if we worked with a partner and provided some dollars for either land banking or land acquisition, this is where there could be $600,000 in CDBG infrastructure funds that could be available for people to tap into to assist with a specific project. Then we have down payment assistance identified at $2.5 million. This one would be a citywide program, but as we will mention under the staff report, there's a specific potential homeownership program that the council is going to be referring out tomorrow night that we'll be reporting out on under our staff report. That could be for a single family homeowner development where there would be down payment assistance provided, down payment loan up to $25,000 per home that would be payable upon sale or refinance. And then we've got the emergency housing fund for seniors. This would be if there's some mechanical breakdowns or potentially if they would need a new roof or some weather-related activities there, something that could put them at risk of being displaced from their homes. So to be determined what the criteria would be for that. And then the other bullet point there that this would not come out of the TID for housing bucket, but it would be utilized through the existing TID districts that we have available around the city. And that would be for a program that we would pilot where 10% of the units within a market rate building would be at 60% of median income in a market rate building. I think we've shared with you in the past that we had toured the buildings in Shorewood Hills that John Flad did at the Boulevard and also at the Lodge across from Target. And so we've been talking to the Fish Hatchery Road developers about the possibility of doing this, but we also now are engaged with Avante Properties about a potential project in Uptown that might be our pilot project. So we're just restarting and jump-starting those conversations. And then the last one is kind of that catch-all of public-private partnerships that if we're approached by a specific developer, like this potential homeownership program that we're talking about, we're open to exploring those public-private partnerships and potential collaborations with those entities. So those are kind of the program categories and the dollar amounts that the staff has kind of worked with the mayor on. Those total up to about $7.5 million out of the TID for Housing Fund right now. And then we would leave the remaining $2.5 million of the 10 undesignated at this time. And that would be hopefully the updated housing plan that would be completed at the end of the year would help us maybe identify other priorities maybe that we haven't currently identified as they go through their focus groups and as they update the data and market statistics there, or through the focus groups and the research that they do we decide to add more money to some of these existing buckets that we've identified. So with that, we would, if my colleagues have anything to add, otherwise we would open it up for thoughts, feedback, input. The priorities identified here in the programs and the buckets really align with the 2019 plan that focused on upgrading our existing multifamily, that older housing stock, home ownership, and then increasing the amount of workforce and affordable housing units in our community. So they still align with that, with those priorities that were identified in the 2019 plan.
I just have a question. Is it possible for you to share screen? Mike, there's so many different buckets that you mentioned with so many different numbers, and I can't keep them all straight, and I don't know which is a loan and which is a grant. So could you just share your screen so I could get a better sense of the overall program priorities you and the mayor have identified?
Olivia, isn't it in the packet? Can you click on the packet?
Yeah, Olivia, it's the last page in the packet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I can plug in here too, probably, and put it up on the screen. Can I do that, Chad, if I use this? Okay.
I guess my only question would be, you know, we're putting redevelopment resources to work to put this plan all together for us. Should we give that a minute to kind of, make decisions about all these things?
Eric.
Anybody?
Yeah.
So I think I understand what Jenny's
I can't tell if these are grants or loans or if they're revolving loan funds or, yeah. Is it possible to get this in a spreadsheet?
Sure, we can continue to have it evolve.
Jenny, I want to kind of address your question too. So the question again was, should we kind of wait until redevelopment resources kind of gets underway and to kind of look at some of the buckets? We have some developers right now that are very interested in moving forward. So just that time frame is why we're trying to, move some programs along. But I do think that redevelopment resources should kind of look at it and make any revisions if needed. But that's kind of the reason why we're kind of getting this underway.
I mean, I feel like some of these things we've been talking about for a while, and there are sort of projects that for sure should move forward, but I just feel like we have this amazing plan that's going to be presented to us with a lot of research behind it, and making informed decisions based on that, would be, but it's great to have at least a start on some ideas. All these look really good.
And that's why, Jenny, we left the undesignated amount there, and we didn't allocate the full amount. The mayor and I think other elected officials on the council wanted to start to utilize these dollars, even though they've only been available really in the last 2 to 3 years since we closed out the TID districts. But they wanted to see us start to deploy some of the resources, so that's why even the deferred loan program. Olivia, to your question, the low-income housing tax credits, this is our pilot program where we would do a deferred loan that would get paid back at the end of that term. So that's kind of a new model for us, working with our financial advisors. The Efficiency Navigator program, we're basically covering the cost of those improvements. So that's kind of one-time dollars that are being expended to upgrade those multifamily older mom and pop, less than 20 units. The down payment assistance would be a loan, and that would be repayable upon sale or refinance there. The land banking and acquisition, the parameters of that are to be determined. I know Lorene has been researching some other programs and in other cities and other municipalities of how they structured a program. What is even the ratio of that? Is it dollar for dollar that we would match? Is it 2 for 1? So I think that remains to be determined yet. We want to kind of look at some other examples and best practices. The Emergency Housing Fund, just from some initial conversations with the mayor and city staff, I think that was meant to be possibly, again, a loan that would be repaid at some point in time in the future. But it was meant to help somebody during a hardship, with an unexpected expense that could result in them being at risk of being displaced for the senior population. So those were just some of the initial thoughts.
So these are idea buckets, really. I mean, these are not set in stone, and is that kind of what you were saying? Yeah.
Sorry. How much flexibility is there? Because, you've allocated certain numbers, right, to each of these buckets. Well, I mean, can that be fluctuate from one bucket to the other? I mean, how set in stone? Because I think it's somewhat limiting to set a certain number for a project, such as something like rental rehab and Efficiency Navigator. Now, you've experienced that it was fairly popular and allocated some additional resources. It may be that we want to continue with that program. I don't know how these particular numbers were arrived at, whether they're somewhat arbitrary or what thought process went into it, and then how, what's the possibility for those numbers to fluctuate? And then we can move funds from one bucket to the other.
Right, like if redevelopment resources says, you know, the Efficiency Navigator program is really a lot of bang for the buck, maybe that ends up being $2 million if that's their recommendation. So is that kind of what you're getting at, is that if we can shift some money around a little bit, these numbers are really fluid? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think they're somewhat, to answer your question, Mallory, they're somewhat arbitrary at this point in time. With the Efficiency Navigator, I think it was that we've got a successful first launch in place where, you know, we started with 330 with some of the window replacement, you know, increasing costs. That kind of bumped us up to $500,000 that we're looking at. So we thought we would kind of double that, thinking we launched, we've got a successful launch, let's do it again and kind of replicate that with some additional properties and owners. So that's why we added to that bucket and everything. The low-income housing tax credits, we put 1.5, and we'll be using 330. On that one, we know that there's a senior housing development. Lorene was going to provide an update on that under the staff report. That's going to go along Nesbitt Road that JT Klein is proposing, that they will be coming to us for a request and an ask there. So we may have to tap into that line item for that project. That's going to be 3 80-unit buildings over there with 160 of them, 2 buildings being affordable, and the third building would be market rate over there. So that's why we kind of put some capacity in that bucket for potentially a future request from him for some senior housing that would be coming. With the land banking, we kind of put the dollar amount that we did in there because we know that some of our partners, like Habitat and the Madison Community Land Trust, are getting some dollars from Dane County to look to acquire land within Dane County and hopefully in Fitchburg here. So that's why we wanted to put some dollars that, again, whether we would do a 1-for-1 match or whether we would look for every dollar we put in, does the partner bring $2? That's why we don't know what that ratio would be yet. Lorene's doing some research on those programs from other communities right now. The down payment assistance was, the dollar amount was identified basically for 100 homes at $25,000. So that's how we derived that number. So even though they may be arbitrary, there was some thought process as far as why we put the dollar levels at the amount that we did, based on some conversations that we've been having. But I think we probably approach it from the perspective of we want to be flexible, and if if we see more interest in one category, can we move some dollars around? I'm not opposed to that. I think the mayor had directed, she just wanted to know kind of what are some of the programs and which dollars would flow to what programs. And we left the undesignated category to start with. So once we get the final housing plan from redevelopment resources, we can maybe add some new buckets, or maybe we adjust whatever existing buckets we've kind of put in place and adjust accordingly.
So it's a very educated guess at how you'd want to spend this money, and that there's flexibility there once the dust settles on everything by the end of the year. Yeah, that makes sense.
And these categories, not necessarily the dollar amounts, but the categories reflect still the priorities in the 2019 plan, which the rental rehabilitation, the workforce housing units, and home ownership, I think are still all relevant priorities. Even as much as the housing market has changed, I think they still are priorities or needs in our community, even today.
Olivia, go ahead.
I just want to say that I think this is a really great selection that you've made of buckets. As we know, things don't change a lot. They get more expensive in the housing space, but these are a really great first selection. I will share with you, these are all reflected in the regional housing strategy, identified pretty much time and time again in my work on regional housing issues, the trends, the challenges we're seeing, the shortages we're seeing. The one thing I will share, if folks aren't aware, that we have we all know that there's a housing shortage, there's an affordable housing shortage, but there's a very significant shortage in affordable senior housing and senior housing in general. So it's really exciting to hear about the potential J.T. Klein project that you might be able to assist with. The other thing I would mention is that, let me pull this up again, see if I can. The one thing I don't see that I think we saw a couple of programs, I can't remember if you invited, it was La Crosse or Eau Claire. A couple of things that are really important is individual home rehab, preservation for individual homeowners. I don't see that in your list. It might be something to consider. I know that several municipalities around Dane County are doing that, whether it's minor or major home repair, whether it's roofs or windows or something less expensive like a wheelchair ramp or something, or maybe it's energy efficiency upgrades like a new furnace. But that's also a very important opportunity. And I think also what I think we're probably all very familiar with is the fact that 95% of the affordable housing, the workforce housing in Dane County is actually older housing stock. So it's exciting to see that you are focusing on multifamily rehab. And that's certainly an area where I don't think we could get enough investment. But I don't know, and maybe you can let me know, Mike, if the energy efficiency program excludes, my understanding is that it's about the HVAC and not necessarily about windows or roofs or anything else. So if you could just remind me of what's included in what opportunities there are in the Efficiency Navigator program. And then the only other thing I would suggest is that $1 million it could be higher, for sure.
I'll let Joyce chime in on the details of the Efficiency Navigator with the scope of work. No, I would just chime in even right now based on the question.
Olivia, it isn't just HVAC. It can be anything from insulation, windows, siding, refrigerators, you name it. It's anything that would provide energy efficiency savings to the renter. So, and the renters have to be at 80% or less of AMI. So it's not just limited to, weather stripping or anything like that. Right. And I can give you a little bit more background when I do my report.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And the only other thing I would suggest is that it would be more than $1 million. And I have one final question. Was Fitchburg involved in the Pro Housing Grant? And if so, what money is coming from Dane County from the HUD Pro Housing Grant to Fitchburg?
Yes, we were part of the Pro Housing, and that's the $600,000 CDBG infrastructure money.
I just have that in the wrong line item, Olivia. I need to move that down under the resources for land banking and acquisition. See the 600 right there? I just need to move it down under land banking and acquisition here.
Great, okay, thank you.
I just have two comments. One, with regard to the buckets that are described here, we've got public-private partnerships, which could encompass a variety of things, right, and a variety of incentives and what have you. I don't want to exclude things that have been used currently that have been successful. I look at Washington County's Next Generation Housing Program. They have some tools that they're using that don't necessarily fit in here, but maybe under a public-private partnership description it might. Kenosha County is doing something too. I think there's a lot of potential tools that we could utilize that may not fit in the buckets that you have. So I wouldn't want to negate the opportunity to utilize some of these tools that have been successful in other programs. The second thing relates to something that Olivia, I think, was alluding to. We have a lot of multifamily that is aging, and not just what the efficiency navigator. I mean, I lived in this stuff 35 years ago, right? And so, and a lot of it hasn't changed from 35 years ago. So the question is there, because I know our efficiency navigator is what, 16 units or less, or 12 units or less. So that doesn't really hit that particular segment of our housing. The question is, you know, how do we help the aging housing stock, that naturally occurring affordable housing? And I think that when you look at the light tech developments, the new ones that are coming in, I don't even know what our inventory is in Fitchburg, you know, what the vacancy rates are. You know, I can look at, see what the rents they can charge at 60% of median, and they're not inexpensive when you look at it. 1 bedroom is $1,461, 2 bedroom is $1,753, and a 3 bedroom is $2,000, over $2,000 a month. So I wonder, you know, if we're considering putting money towards some light tech development, why wouldn't we also consider putting some funds toward some of these aging, larger multifamily projects in some way, shape, or form? Because that housing is potentially less expensive, because I don't know that Chalet Gardens is charging this. I really don't. And maybe that's what this housing study will show us. But we've got another potential bucket this money could go to, is helping this aging housing stock that we have. And I think we got quite a bit of it. So that's just my food for thought on that.
No, we have a significant concentration of that naturally occurring aging affordable that developed when Fitchburg was still a town. And you look at, like you said, 35 years ago, that's some of it's 50, 60 years old, you know, now as far as housing stock. What's interesting is in some of the recent acquisitions, we've explored the idea of kind of redeveloping some of those areas in existing TID districts. And the response we've gotten from the new property owners that have acquired it is they are going to keep it just kind of existing, and, you know, are acquiring it to maintain it as that naturally occurring aging affordable. So I don't know what the answer is for our program, you know, on that one. A lot of that is located in existing TID districts. So even if we're not using TIF for housing dollars out of the 10 million fund, is there an opportunity through the existing TID districts? But there we would need some increased valuation that would then, you know, generate that additional increment that we would bring, you know, for investment at those properties for it. So we're struggling with that one, because that is a need, you know, larger than the 16 or 20 unit ones, kind of the bigger projects there. So I think we're open to, you know, exploring ideas and discussing, you know, ideas. I know in the case of Ridgewood, or now the Renew, and I can't remember the new names, but they were recently acquired. Okay, we were, you know, ideally looking to over time, in a phased, you know, kind of approach there, look to redevelop that property into some new housing stock that would incorporate affordable housing. We weren't looking to, you know, gentrify or displace people. Maybe we put a new building that's affordable, and then 2 existing, you know, building residents would move into the new building and kind of do it in a phased approach. But we couldn't get the interest from the owner at that time to work with us on that kind of partnership or collaboration, because we think it would be healthy for some of our neighborhoods long term if we could kind of bring some new affordable housing stock where some of this monolith of that concentration, and then maybe also go with more density, you know, and build up, and then also try and diversify the housing stock as well. That if we could, you know, build up and open up some land, maybe there could be some ownership product that could also be, you know, integrated within the neighborhood, so there was more diversification of the overall housing stock. over time, maybe some townhome units or things like that. So hopefully maybe out of working with redevelopment resources, there's some ideas, that come forward, because some of those areas that developed when we were still a town, we need to reinvest in those neighborhoods and revitalize, but we also need to look at how do they function as a neighborhood long term. And I think our colleague Jessica with the Healthy Neighborhoods is having some of those similar conversations, there. But that needs to be a priority. And is there a mechanism through the existing TIDs, that we can use, or is there some resources in the undesignated category that we would add to a bucket? Wouldn't go probably a long way with, some of those complexes have, hundreds of units and everything there. So from a per unit standpoint, I'm not sure how much of an impact we would do from, just our TID for housing bucket there. But I think we should continue that conversation, and maybe that's something through the housing study update that is part of our focus groups, and even working with some of the multifamily property owners and developers to ask them that question, as well. Because we continue to have those conversations as some of our properties are even turning over there. And I know correct me if I'm wrong, Joyce, but the new fountains, I think, is aged out of the tax credits as far as the Section 42. So I think we're even seeing some rent increases there in that older, housing stock that probably is still affordable, but I think it's, with the rents increasing over there, is less affordable than it probably was.
I would be curious to kind of look at other communities to see how they've done it. I mean, taken old dilapidated apartment complexes and revitalized them, and how did they do that? How did they pay for it? How did they project manage that process and all of that? So I wonder if that's something maybe coming out of our study. We can look to see examples of other communities that have done these kind of revitalizing. I don't know what better word to use for it, but like.
On a good note, the Renew folks that acquired north and south of the golf course they're investing, I believe, $20 million in the buildings, kind of $10 million on each side.
Do you know what they're doing?
What's that?
What are they doing with that money? Do you know? Is it interior stuff, or does it need a new roof and pave the parking lots and stuff like that?
A lot of interior. Then also, I believe there's like a clubhouse that they're kind of rehabbing as well. So, but mostly interior work that they're doing.
I think they also did some roof work there too, for it.
So Jenny, you brought up an interesting thing. So in my previous life, we did work with Habitat, who bought an older 32 unit, and they rehabbed the apartments into home ownership. That's something that I would really like to investigate, possibly with our undesignated dollars. And we do have a lot of condos over in Jamestown area that are individual units. However, investors came in and bought the units up. So they're no longer condominiums, they're rentals. So we have that issue that happened as well, probably maybe 90s. And some of those are our NOAA properties. One of them we went and visited had significant window issues. So we know that they're not properly being maintained. So that's one thing, I've kind of talked a little bit to Mike and Lorraine about that. Maybe that's something we can consider, and maybe not this group, maybe we look at CETA, since they're the housing authority, maybe they come in and start purchasing apartments and rehabbing them. We have to be creative, because once these dollars are gone, we have no way to replenish that funding source for, I think, another 10 plus years. So we have to be very smart. I know people want to get money out the door, but Mike and I, from day one, when we asked to capitalize this fund, we want to be good stewards of of money. And this isn't just Fitchburg taxpayer money. This is all of our taxing jurisdictions' dollars. So that's the end of my sermon. But
well, I think this was great feedback from all of you. So what I heard was flexibility, a focus on rehabbing multifamily properties, and not excluding things that have been successful in the past are things that you would want us to look at. So I think those are great ideas. The only thing on the rehab, and Olivia, I just wanted to say, only concern is when we do those rehabs that those rents don't go sky high, you know? So we just want to keep those at a rate that's affordable.
Yeah, of course, I think that's a really important part of all the programs, but I'm sure you can come up with, I think the Energy Efficiency Navigator already has those requirements, and it needs to be 5 or 10 years, and I don't really know what they are, but I think we all agree that keeping, if you're going to access low-cost money, there's got to be some sort of public return, which is, keeping rents, below or limiting the rent increases to such, certain percentage every year or something for 10 years or whatever. One thing I've also heard in my communications around the regional housing strategy around the county is that residents are really concerned, and especially senior residents sometimes are facing an inability to pay their property taxes. And I don't know if we could include that in the senior emergency bucket that you've shared, but it seems like that might be, that's an aging in place strategy, and maybe it's a one-off, maybe it's a grant, maybe I don't know what it is, but I think it's something to consider, because a lot of seniors are really facing, hardship in terms of their ability to pay their taxes, or moderate income, to lower income homeowners, so I think that there's an opportunity there for us to consider helping seniors stay in their housing.
Olivia, to that question, we didn't call that out specifically under the Emergency Housing Fund, but the mayor asked that question. And I think there's more research that needs to be done, both from a legal and financial standpoint there. And then I know one thing we talked about is if let's say somebody is at risk of, because the mayor was talking about possibly covering the city portion of the tax rate, but we're not the largest portion of the tax bill there. So if somebody's at risk of being displaced for taxes, even if we cover the city portion, I think there were some concerns of would we solve the potential displacement when it's the school district that's the largest portion there. So we'll have some internal conversations on that, but it sounds like there needed to be some, at first, just even some questions asked on the legal and financial front of what is even possible in that spectrum.
Yeah, good.
Any other further comments? Gabriella?
I'm really excited to see this memo. I know there's a lot more work to be done, but I think it's a really nice starting point to just kind of put the list on paper and put a number for initial discussion. We're going to be having some more conversations in council at committee of the whole meetings to kind of dig into some of these issues. But as I said before, I know the council wants to act, and I really appreciate hearing the feedback from the committee about what you like and don't like, or what you'd like to see in this type of discussion. So I'm excited to continue the conversation.
I think what's exciting too is for all of these, they flow from conversations staff is having with developers and or partners, that are out there. And to Joyce's point, I think especially with the land banking and the acquisition there, we're just strategizing on how do we leverage our dollars to have an even bigger impact by leveraging partner organization dollars to make something happen in our community. So there's just some really good conversations going on and some projects that'll be coming. And once we get to the staff update, we can highlight a few that are kind of coming in the pipeline.
The only thing I wanted to mention is, Lorraine, in your summary or your recap, I did mention the need for single-family, whether it's facade improvement or new roofs, individual single-family, because I don't see single-family rehab in here. And I know we can't have everything, but it is also a big priority.
Okay, thank you. I noted that.
Okay, agenda item number 10 is the neighborhood plans for Greenfield and South Stoner neighborhood. And I think those go to Planning Commission on the 17th, is that right?
Yeah, so I'm just going to give a quick overview. Both plans will be going to the Plan Commission on June 17th for public hearing. So if you'd like to attend and provide your comments at that meeting, you're welcome to. Staff has been instructed to gather any input from any of our committee members and provide it to Brad by July 10th. So I'm collecting all of the comments for Housing Advisory and CETA, and I ask that you have your comments to me by July 9th. So hey, have a little time to process them and get them to Brad. Then there will be a public hearing September 16th at the Common Council with action on the 23rd. So you'll have another opportunity after the Plan Commission meeting if you still have questions or concerns. So the drop dead date is July 9th for comments. You can just email them to me and I will gather them together and send them off to Brad.
Perfect.
And then you're always welcome to attend the public hearings as well at both the Plan Commission and the council.
Okay.
They decided, just based on budget resources and everything, they couldn't come out to each committee, for the plans. So we're trying to be efficient and effective at the same time, but still give people the opportunity to provide feedback and input on the plans. So that's why we're trying to get out front of it here and let the committees know that.
Okay. Department report?
You want to kick it off, Larry?
Sure, I'll kick it off. So about 2 weeks ago, I think Jenny and Gabriella, we all and Joyce went to the Smart Growth Madison in Sun Prairie. It was really great, I thought. Just some of the things that they talked about. Kurt Paulson talked about the affordable housing in Dane County and really talked about how high the housing prices are here, and it's basically because of the incomes are higher here in Dane County. And then also indicated that there's a high demand with undersupplied housing stock here. And that shortage is driving up those costs. And then also kind of talked about that most of the housing programs are federally funded, and so municipalities have to utilize TIF as a result of that. There was also a legal perspective. Murphy Desmond provided an overview of legal constraints in development projects and really just talked about how developers and municipalities really have to carefully navigate zoning and rezoning laws, and then public process and noticing requirements as well. There was also a presentation by Nicole Solham from Senair, and she talked about kind of the WIDA scoring process and the LIHTC process as well, and how that's determined and the factors that impact that. And then I think Jenny's favorite was the Randy Alexander project, and maybe you can kind of share a little bit what you thought about that, but I thought it was a really excellent kind of case study in Poinet, where there was 310 homes that were developed, and really kind of highlighted that there's a lot of potential for significant impact in smaller communities. So do you want to kind of share a little bit what you thought about it?
It was just a really great example of how to do well, and you guys were there, or Joyce, you were there too. Didn't you think of how to do an affordable community that still felt very homey and a place that families would want to live? The price points, I don't know how feasible it would be to sort of pick up something like that and just plop it in the middle of Dane County or Fitchburg. But I thought that it was a great concept. And so I mentioned it to Redevelopment Resources and asked them to, they were familiar with the project, so they're going to look into kind of, the feasibility of doing something like that here. But yeah, it was really, really great.
And I think the reasoning behind it was that many of the workers it was kind of a bedroom community where they were working outside of the community and really wanted a place that they could live that's near their job. So that was kind of his focus.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the workers that they used for the project, carpenters, electricians, painters, they were local people, so they didn't have to go out and find these workers in other communities and bring them in to work. So that kept costs down. It was really neat. So, yeah.
Gabriella or Joyce, did you have anything to add on the presentation?
I just know I received. Oh, go ahead, Gabriella.
No, you please go ahead, Joyce.
I took lots of notes, especially when it was the building contractor, because that's kind of my forte. I like to learn about cost of construction, cost of development, cost of land. The development that you referenced, unfortunately, was in Columbia County. So when you look at land costs, there's a big difference there. I did get some information on the TID because I wanted to learn more about how the TID was developed, and I did get some information on the developers agreement, so I want to take a look at that. They're phasing it, so I think there was, I believe, 24 houses, I don't have my notes with me, that were initially started, but it's a mixed-use TID, and so I thought it was interesting. I always learned something from that, so I enjoyed it. I wished it would have been longer because we got cut off in the attorney part, and I'm interested in that as well. So, because I think I'm kind of an attorney sometimes.
Yeah, and I'll just open up. Smart Growth Greater Madison is a really interesting organization, and I think there's so much value in bringing the perspectives of developers to public officials, and there's just so much there. So yeah, the presentation by Kurt Paulson to give kind of context was helpful. There was kind of a real estate development 101 for profit. There was one about sort of LIHTC and the different affordable housing tools. There was a single family home developer that talked about the cost of building a single family home, and then also, as mentioned, the legal costs, and then the example from Alexander about the Poinet development. So there's so much there. It was a lot to absorb, but I think it's helpful to see it from that perspective as we're making these decisions. It's not the only consideration, but I think it's a perspective that's not always fully understood. So really enjoyed it, and I like what Bill Connors is doing over at Smarter Growth Greater Madison. So if you're not on, not following them, it's worthwhile to follow them, or follow that organization.
One of the other things that really stood out to me that was quite honestly upsetting was the amount of time that it takes to, the developer, the Hovde guy, it's 5 years, start to finish. When I think about the urgent need we have for housing, it's a slow motion, car accident here. Like so I think that's going to be challenging for us to try to solve these issues we have today, and we don't have answers for probably another 5 years. So, and at that point, we're going to have more needs. So hopefully we can predict and look to the future. Not just planning for what we need today, but what are we going to need in 5 years? Because that's when we would start to see these developments come to fruition.
I think one of our biggest challenges here in Fitchburg is we have land. However, we don't have always willing sellers, and we can't force them to sell. So they kind of, sometimes put a damper on where we can go and what we can do, which drives up our land costs as well. Wouldn't you agree with that, Mike? And I would say probably one of our best things that was instituted here is the development team. It's a one-stop shop for our developers to come in. It has all the staff people that are involved in the process, from the fire department to planning to economic development, and it's and public works, which is they're all hearing the same thing. They're talking about timelines. They're knowing what each other is going to do and what is expected, and that slows down the approval time, because we're not constantly going back and saying, you need to fix this or fix that, or because as we heard, before even a shovel's in the ground, it's not uncommon to have $200,000 in expenses. And every time we push somebody back, it just adds more money. So I'm done with my
Well, and Brad
sermon.
also said that we have utility issues as we go out into the country. We can't just pick a plot of land and build a development. We have utility issues that we have to overcome. Right? Yeah.
On a positive note, the Smart Growth Greater Madison, when they did the analysis, Fitchburg was identified as the most efficient community as far as moving development projects through the entitlement process. That was a combination of kudos to our staff, led by Deanna with the development team. We also benefited, though, from Smart Code, where through that, a lot of the approvals are done administratively. That once you rezone the land to Smart Code through the Article 3, then as long as you kind of align with the development parameters there and you check the boxes, it's a more timely and efficient speed to market process. So Terra Vesta is an example of that on the east side of MM, and then Uptown is an example on the west side. And to Joyce's point about land and available land in the community, we're excited that Phil Sphiem, we introduced him to the Holmes Bobberschmidt family, who have a significant amount of land, 90 to 100 acres north of Avantes and Uptown. And that now is starting to move forward through the entitlement process. They've got their amended Article 3 submitted to us that staff is working with them on. So we're really excited that that's going to start to open up a significant amount of some vacant land that'll bring us additional areas for housing and multifamily and mixed-use development, over there. Because the three of us can identify multiple areas around the city that we would love to have this land available and ready for development. We've got the Payne and Dolan land sitting right there at Fitzrona and Lacey Road that they've got a comprehensive development plan. So far, they haven't reached agreement with the developer to bring that forward. And we're out of lots in the Verona School District right now. And we're like, bring that forward. But we have to follow their lead and the property owner's lead on those things from a timing standpoint.
So the people who the landowners who don't want to sell, what have you found to be their issue? Is it they want more money than is willing to,
I think it's the economics of the deal, you know.
And a lot of it is private personal matters, that they have a strategy and a timeline for how they can sell land and when they can sell land. That's all I'll say.
So family legacy type issues.
Sometimes there's trust and legal trust and estate, kind of considerations as the family with multiple heirs are kind of working through some of those.
Those are real barriers. I mean,
kind
that's
of legal,
not,
yeah.
You could throw all the money in the world at them, but they may still not want to do it.
Yeah, money isn't always the motivating. You know, some of it too is legacy. You know, we have, and I often talk about, we have two kinds of farmers in Fitchburg. We have the farmers who want to continue to farm, they want to own their land, and they don't want to sell. And then we have the farmers who have the land, it's their investment and their retirement, and they want to sell, but they can't. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword. You know, it's like who gets to be in first, who gets to be in last kind of thing. I mean, we've been here a long time, and, you know, talking to even some of those long-time landowners, you understand where they're coming from. I mean, they do have plans. It's just not at our
timeline,
speed.
at our timeline.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's great that we have redevelopment resources that can look into that, but we want to keep on with the reports. So that was a great presentation, and some other things that are happening. I did send everyone for the July 1st tour of those 3 properties in the Hartung Field area. So I will be sending that itinerary shortly, probably at the end of the week. And then the other thing I was going to share, the JT Klein that Mike already kind of shared, but we're really excited about that senior housing product that's going to be near Target. And one, I think it's great because that it's near the amenities that seniors can, you know, access Target and the other stores. And then also transportation is really close by. So those are kind of some things that our seniors have really spoke out about. And then also there's going to be a mix. So both LIHTC and then also market rent. So we'll be all in the senior housing project. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Mike.
I would just say that's going to be on the lot, I would call it north of Gymfinity Gymnastics, on the west side of Nesbitt Road, kind of across from Quivy's Grove. There's a nice kind of square shaped lot there, and they would do 3 buildings, 80 units each, and then 160 would be kind of the affordable, and then they would do 80 units of market. They did get awarded the LIHTC credits and everything, so now the next step for us as city staff is we're looking at amending tax increment district number 18, which we created about a year or two ago. That's the one that's on the east side of Verona Road and north of Lacey Road. And we've talked to Ellers about utilizing Verona Road as the connector to jump the highway to kind of connect through Quivy's Grove, the parcels there, to get over to this parcel along Nesbitt Road. Joyce has already done some research on that, on which parcels we can include, just because it's a rehabilitation district, so there's just some parameters we got to kind of stay within and everything, but we're looking at that kind of strategy. But really excited, and that again was another priority in our 2019 plan, that we needed 600 senior housing units and definitely needed more affordable units in that senior housing portfolio.
And they were awarded 9%.
9%?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Gabriella.
In regards to the JT Klein project, I think it's really great that we can get more affordable senior housing in the community, but did want to point out that Madison Metro recently changed that bus route. They are expanding transit to Verona and thereby changing the route so it no longer goes as far down Fitchburg Road to that termination point, which was originally supposed to be right next to the building. Now the termination point is going to be up near the Target, which is close, but it is more of a walk.
close.
It'll still be within that paratransit window. So anyone that maybe cannot make that walk maybe would be able to qualify for paratransit and thereby could use the bus service that way. But it is just something to be aware of. The bus line is not as close as it used to be. And that was a decision by Madison Metro. They obviously let us know, but it's not something that we can choose, because the expansion is coming at the request of Verona and at the funding of Verona, and not coming from our finances.
Gabriella, do you know if that is something that could get changed back once this housing development is there, that there can be sort of a reassessment of that route, given that there'd be a new housing development? Is that how that works? I don't really know how that works.
I mean, I certainly think that's something we could bring up again. Based on what I know about Metro, they design these routes kind of based on timing, which is why they don't want to go as far down the road. It's for the timing of I think they looked at going down Fitchburg and then up Nesbitt or some sort of arrangement that they would still cross by that area, and they decided against it for whatever reason. I think your best bet might be an overall expansion of the system through Fitchburg, because there's certainly a lot of housing developments along Fitchburg and down, Lacey Road that has potential, but obviously that comes with additional costs. It's something that we could explore. My inclination is that's probably unlikely, but there's no reason why we couldn't continue that conversation with Metro.
Thank you for that feedback, Gabriella. I guess that's kind of one of the number one things that the seniors have said is that transportation is an issue for them. So.
That's it then, Lorraine?
That's it for my report, and then I think Joyce and Mike may have some other things.
You want to go next, Joyce, with efficiency? Why don't you go with efficiency, and then I'll finish up.
So efficiency navigator, I believe at the last meeting I mentioned that they had found some gas leaks, and they have been taken care of. And at this, in the last report that I received, they found some attic mold in one of the buildings, and they had anticipated to just upgrade the insulation. However, they had to pull it all out because it was so molded. And the property owner has agreed to put on a new roof. So that is our very first change order, which was approved by building inspection. So it'll be an additional about $4,200, I believe, for that insulation. But once again, it meets one of the goals that this committee and CETA was hoping to do, is provide some safe, healthy places to live. So we were happy to hear that, they're really doing a great, thorough job. I got an email today saying that phase one is project one is almost complete. It will be complete next week. Tomorrow morning, I should have phase two projections in my inbox. I believe Mike mentioned to you that this is the phase that will have new windows in some of the buildings. And we had a quick call, Lorene and myself, with Sustained Dane about how to handle this, because it's going to be probably an increase around $100,000. So we went to Mike and said, hey, we have a couple of options. They can do one building, they can do a few windows in each one of the buildings, or we can do them all. And based on the fact that we had put additional dollars in the budget this year for this program, we said we want to support doing all the windows. So that will be coming as part of the approval process, hopefully as soon as I get everything ready to be referred out. So the project has been phenomenal, and I want to thank all of you for prioritizing this. If you recall, early on, we went through the housing plan and we did our neighborhood walks, and that was our number one focus at that time, was to really work on getting those properties updated. So thank you for that, and we'll see what phase two brings us.
So that additional overage, we're going to have to vote on that?
No.
No, okay.
Our contract was a not to exceed.
Okay.
And we had a provision in there for change orders. And so the change order was approved, and we had a little bit more dollars in there than what the quotes were at the time. So I think we should be fine on that part. It's just the window part. And I do need to check in with with Claire, because we did apply for a joint grant with Madison, and we were awarded some dollars, but I got to just figure out how those dollars flow into the projects that we are going to be doing. So I will report that back probably at the next meeting. We'll probably, well, I may or may not. I don't know if I want to wait for 2 months to push this through, because it really is an important project, and as we just discussed, every time we wait a little bit, the cost goes up. So I'll probably just bring it forward to CETA for approval and then report back to you guys where we landed.
And piggybacking on that, on the windows, we talked and we were, if we're going to do these, we want to do the project right. And to only do one side of the building or only one building, it's like, you know, let's utilize these dollars and improve these buildings. And we went to administration and finance, and they all totally agreed with us on that approach. So appreciate the flexibility to be able to do that.
And timing-wise, that's something we can get done before winter, I'm assuming? It's not going to take...
I believe so, but just like anything else, it's going to be supplies, supply chain, and availability of labor. So I hope that would be great if we could.
And I've got a few more updates. And Chad, can you get me back up on the screen, please, with my screen? Okay, just a couple of development updates. On Thursday of next week, the 19th, the learning experience, the daycare that was completed and then didn't necessarily open and take occupancy. They're ready to do their grand opening and ribbon cutting next week, Thursday at noon. So daycare and childcare is another need and priority in our community for families. So please join us for that groundbreaking next week, Thursday on the 19th at noon. I know it's Juneteenth Day and people may be off and everything, but if you're out and about and want to stop by, please join us for that. Then the next slide I wanted to show you tomorrow on the development team that we referenced is the LifePoint UW Health Rehab Hospital. So we're winding through the approvals for this project, but this will be the next project that'll happen in Uptown Fitchburg. So here's a rendering of, it's a 40-bed physical rehabilitation hospital, a joint venture between UW Health, Unity Point, and then LifePoint, and then a ownership organization by the name of Sanders Trust. And if I go to the Uptown map here, that rehab hospital is going to go kind of right where my cursor is here. They're acquiring some additional land from Avante Properties. And then the next building that we'll be talking about with Avante will be right at the roundabout here of Lacey Road and East Sherrill Parkway. And that could be that pilot project for our workforce units within a market rate building that we're having some conversations with them on. Then the next one, building that we're going to tour on July 1st. This one now is called the Juniper, is actually the name of the building. And they're taking occupancy here the middle of June. So that'll be on the tour that Lorene has organized for us. And then Ned is working with Deanna and City Planning for the B building here in Hartung Fields as well. So hopefully we'll see another building coming forward at that site to add to our multifamily housing stock. And then one of the big questions we always get is, when is something going to happen on Bowman Plaza? Now I'm on Fish Hatchery Road here. This is the concept for the redevelopment of Bowman Plaza. We've got a meeting tomorrow at 3:30 with Ned, the developer of that building, to talk through the final details of the tax increment district deal that we're putting in place with him. But this would be a 7-story building with 5 floors of market rate apartments, 9,500 square feet of commercial space, and then 2 floors of underground parking to accommodate that level of density at that site. And then the other one, I'll zip over to the west side. If you've been over by Super Target and the quarry site on the north side, of course, here's the site plan from Coburn Hundley, where we'll have a Chase Bank along the front, Chick-fil-A, Crew Car Wash, McDonald's, But if you see the concrete walls that have been going up here, this is Corey Frank's, one of those Texas wrap apartment buildings that's going up, and this is what that will look like here. That brings us another, what did I write down here? 273.
Those were market rate, is that right?
Units. Those are market rate.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So some good stuff happening around the city, and then our 100-room Spring Hill Suites Hotel seems to be on schedule to hopefully open around October, to be open for World Dairy, and I think one of the epic events that comes to town as well. And then the last thing that I will mention is if you go to the council agenda packet, agenda item 5C12, and this goes to that public-private partnership that was in our bucket, our housing programs kind of bucket category there. We've been approached for a single-family home ownership kind of proposal that would involve a public-private partnership. And so the terms of that proposal is under that agenda item for tomorrow night's agenda packet 5C12. It involves some policy considerations by our council as far as TIF and participation financially in a project. It would be with Gorman and Company, and that's getting referred out at the council meeting tomorrow night. So they wanted us to just give an update to the Housing Advisory Committee that that's going out. And then it will go to Finance and Council on June 24th at their respective meetings. And in discussions with the mayor, administration, staff, and then with the Gorman team, it was determined that we should go to the council and finance first because of the kind of the 30,000-foot policy considerations. And then depending on the direction we get from the council, if they give us the green light to proceed, then eventually when there's a specific site identified and a specific project that would kind of be per the terms of that proposal with those policy considerations, then that would flow to the committees like the Housing Advisory, CETA, when there's an actual project to evaluate. So we just want to, for information only, share that with you. And then if you want to go and look at kind of the terms that are being proposed, that would be under the agenda packet item 5C12. And then we will keep you posted as far as the direction that we get from the council on that.
So Mike, is your PowerPoint on the website? This one? It is on this one.
Yeah, no, we kind of keep a running update of this, but we can send it to you.
That'd be awesome. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. We'll send it out to you. Joyce has it compressed for me just because there's a lot of visuals and a lot of graphics
Yeah, it's great.
in there. We keep it, Joyce updates it regularly after the Plant Commission meetings, and it's amazing, you know, when we go out and do presentations, whether to neighborhood groups, and I know I'm going to be on the district update, the next one that the mayor has. There's so much going on around the city that when you get in front of folks, they're like, well, I didn't realize that was going on. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they saw some dirt being moved somewhere and they're like, oh, that's what that project is. So it's good for us to get out and kind of share with people what is happening in the city and the various projects, because there's a lot of good things that are happening all around the city geographically. But we can send you out the latest updated version.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I'll give a quick plug for the planning department too. If you go out on our website and you go down to the bottom where it says GIS,
Yep.
if you click on that, it brings up a thing that's called Plan Viewer, and you can go in and there's dots all over the map. So if you're wondering, hey, they're moving dirt over here, what is it? You can click on there and it'll bring up the application materials for whatever's going on.
Wow.
So I'm just they put a lot of time into, I guess I should give a shout out to Dakota, our GIS person, who did that. So it's a great tool, another one of our communication tools that people aren't really aware of. Right. So use it.
Perfect. Sounds good. So our next meeting then is August 11th. No more announcements?
No.
We're good?
That covers everything.
Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Go for it,
I'll
Jen.
make the motion.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. The meeting's adjourned. Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate your time and effort.
Thanks, everybody.